Did Chase Bank make moves to impose capital controls on small business accounts last week? Chase says no, but are they playing word games? Letters went out to business account holders stating that they would be prohibited from sending and receiving domestic wire transfers as well as international wires. Cash activity will also be limited to $50,000 per cycle. Chase calls these moves streamlining and de-risking. They claim that these types of transactions carry a higher degree of risk than standard banking. Many people believe that this was actually done in an effort to prevent a run on deposits. Few critics have gone so far as to call the changes a move in a war against cash. These privacy advocates argue that paper currency is the only way to buy and sell without creating digital records. Here to break down these moves by Chase and give perspective on their actions is Gerald Celente. He's the publisher of the TrendsJournal. Welcome back to the program, Gerald.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
Gerald, Chase calls their recent notice to bank customers streamlining and de-risking. Are they playing word games, or is it accurate to call their actions capital controls?
Are they playing word games? Of course. I mean, look what they're doing. Who could get away with this? And you can see what's going on over here in a lot of ways. Since 2009, J.P. Morgan Chase has paid nearly $30 billion, that's with a B, $30 billion worth of fines and spending that in litigation for the actions that they have taken that are both illegal and immoral. So even though they're making a lot of dough, $30 billion is a lot of money. And I really suspect from my experiences in the past that J.P. Morgan Chase may not have the money that they need to keep their systems operating. Even though people say, well, you know, the overnight rate's near zero, they can get all they want. It's not that easy. And I'll tell you why I say that. From my own experiences, I wrote about it in the TrendsJournal twice when I tried to make deposits in those numbers that Chase is talking about, withdrawals, excuse me, in the $50,000 range. You should see the song and dance I had to go through. I had to put up a scene twice. I mean, an ugly scene. Once.
So Gerald, you recently went to the bank and actually tried to make a $50,000 withdrawal.
Exactly.
To test their policies.
Yeah. And one was with HSBC, and the other one was with Key Bank. What a bunch of criminals that are running these banks. You thought I was stealing the money rather than trying to take out my own. Now, let's look at when Chase did this. They did this while the United States was going through that calamity of raising the debt ceiling. A calamity that destabilized much of the world financial markets. They are on a tenterhook as to where this economy is going. Let's just look at the facts and go back to Chase.
Well, let's do that. Let's do that for a minute. You just said that you believe that Chase does not have the capital on hand to accommodate these types of transfers. What makes you believe that? I mean, just by limiting the transfers themselves, there has to be something else.
They just paid, just recently, they're being fined, just within the last week, they're being fined another $13 billion. And as I mentioned, since 2006, when you add them all, 2009, when you add them all up, they're about $30 billion in the hole. So do they have the money? If there's a financial run, will they be able to cover it? And that's what I'm saying. And to me, Cyprus this last year was the canary in the mine shaft when they closed down the banks and you weren't allowed to get all your money out at one time. And if you had over a certain amount, over there it was 100,000 euros, in that white shoe boy language, they were going to give you a haircut, which means they were going to steal your money and you weren't going to get all of it back. And they put on the same kind of controls if you had under 100,000 that Chase is doing. So I believe they're preparing for the worst. And that's why I was saying you have to look at the global situation. Look what's going on now in China.
Well, you mentioned Cyprus. Now you're talking about China. The international wire aspect of this. Why do they see that as a threat? Is it simply because the money is departing the United States, departing U.S. banks, the U.S. Chase Bank, and going to another bank overseas? That's the threat.
It's bigger than that. It's a destabilization of the entire financial system. As I'm mentioning, you go back to Wednesday of this week. Look what happened over in the Asian markets with the fear that the Chinese are going to tighten up on lending because they have a real estate bubble. You just saw prices in places like Shanghai, real estate prices go up over 20% in a year. And now they're covering a lot of bad debt. What I'm saying is the entire world banking system is under pressure. And I believe Chase is putting these actions into place, these restrictions on withdrawals because of the greater issue.
So do you believe that they believe that there is going to be a run on the banks?
I believe that they believe that there's going to be a financial crisis. And when that financial crisis hits with that beautiful 2-bit smile, somebody will tell you on the other side of the teller's cage over there, didn't you read in your agreement that you can't get your money out? Yes. They're looking at the total financial situation. Look what happened in the United States with the new jobs report that just came out earlier this week. The jobs aren't being created, and the ones that are being created can't pay a living wage. They're going to have to keep tapering going. And come January, they're also going to revisit the debt ceiling and whether or not to keep the government operating again. They're postponing this for the Christmas holidays. And I believe all of these restrictions are being put in place because when the system collapses, you get screwed. Just like HSBC, just like KeyBank, and just like John the Slime Corzine from MF Global stole my money out of segregated account and said, hey, that's the law. The law of the land is the banks are screwing everybody, and they're putting these restrictions in place so that when it collapses, you get screwed as they have a smile on their face.
Now, Gerald, I want to take it back for a minute. If the American people are being screwed by the banks, as you say, what can we do? What can the American people do to protect themselves now?
You know, for me, I only speak for myself. I don't give any financial advice. Why are you keeping your money there with them anyway? What are you getting for it? They don't give you anything back on your interest. It's chump change. It doesn't pay for anything. Why are you doing business with these criminal operations? So for me, I try to do with credit unions and my local bank, and I put my money in other places so I could get my hands on it without going through an SOB middleman that I know has a criminal track record. Here, pick up this past Wednesday's Financial Times. Look at the headline. Rabobank faces billion-dollar fine over LIBOR. I'll guarantee you that 99% of your listeners don't know what a Rabobank is. Maybe they thought I'm mispronouncing it and I'm saying robber bank. But no, it's a Dutch joint over there. Another one of the money changers that are rigging the LIBOR rates. And then you look at who else rigged them. Who else? Oh, Royal Bank of Scotland. Don't lose your temper. Say Royal with that Royal BS line in it to make it seem proper. And Barclays and one after another. It's a criminal operation. No one could get away with this crap. Getting fined billions of dollars and not one head rolling. Can't people see what's going on? Why do business with criminals? It's like going out. Election day is coming. Get ready. Election day. Go pull the lever for a lesser of two evils. Same thing in dealing with these SOBs.
No, Gerald, I want to go back to Chase. Because these
You're going to have to chase for your money. That's how they got the name.
These changes that they've imposed, they affect business accounts. should the average account holder be concerned that they may soon see limits as well?
I think everybody should be concerned. They've done it before in this country. Remember the bank holiday under FDR? Oh, that was a beauty. They don't teach you about this in school. I mean, I have a master's degree. I never heard of it once. I heard of the bank holiday. But they glossed over the part where you had to turn in all your gold at $20.62 an ounce. And then when the banks reopened, in those days the dollar was pegged to gold, they repegged the price of gold to $35 an ounce. That's right. You sold it to them for $20.62. Once they got it all in, they raised it to $35. You just lost 70% of your purchasing power. I believe they're going to do something that's going to devalue the dollar permanently, just like they did back then. And again, you never read about it when you go to school. And look what happened during this so-called debt ceiling and government closure crisis. The SOBs waited until the dirty deal was done to postpone it to January and February. And then all of a sudden they announced, oh, by the way, the debt went up. It's not $16.7 trillion anymore. We just added $300 billion plus. How the hell are they going to pay off a $17 trillion debt? They're not. So I believe all these banking deals that are being put in place when the crisis hits, and it's going to hit when interest rates go up, because that's the only thing that's keeping this game going, are these record low interest rates. Look at the housing market. As soon as they go up, the interest rates, you saw the resales last week coming out, they were down way beyond what anybody expected because mortgage rates went up. So when this happens, the bond bubble collapses. The big crises happen.
Now, we're in the 100th year of the Federal Reserve's creation. And how has the Federal Reserve played into this whole role as far as the world economy?
It's not a Federal Reserve. You know that. It's only their name. They're no more federal, as so many people have said, than Federal Express. It's the banking cartel. That's all it is. It's the money changer. And so it's a bunch of banks that are robbing us and continue to do so. Again, I just showed you a headline from the Financial Times. A bank is getting fined $1 billion, not one head roll. Listen, Gary, make sure that registration on your car is up to date. And don't drive with that tail light out over there or that light on the license plate. And make sure you pay your taxes on time. And make sure you're not a 13-year-old kid carrying a plastic gun and the cops shooting you down. Don't you see what's going on over here? This is called the merger of state and corporate powers. You saw it with the too big to fails. This isn't capitalism anymore. It's a takeover by the banks. In capitalism, there's no such thing as too big to fail. You're seeing with Obamacare, this has nothing to do with socialized medicine. We're being forced to buy from private insurers. The merger of state and corporate powers. It's all controlled by the banks. It's in front of everybody's eyes. How many more fines, how many more headlines do they have to read before they can see what's going on?
Gerald, what do you predict will happen to the United States economy in the near future? We just put the Congress has just kicked the can down the road one more time with the debt ceiling and the government shutdown. What do you see happening in the future?
I believe there's going to be a crisis in 2014. My best guesstimate, it's very hard to put a time on it, I believe by the second quarter of 2014. They've postponed the tapering action. They've postponed the debt ceiling action.
Greater than what we saw in 2008.
Oh, much worse. Much worse. Because something has happened that's never happened in the history of the world that's been recorded. And that is central banks throughout the world have been flooding the market with cheap money. I mentioned about China. China's been propping up their economy. Their exports are declining. And what they're doing is they're propping up their economy by printing money and making wild loans to the banking system. You look at the euro. You have the Mario Draghi. Unlimited, and he told everybody. The money's just going to keep pumping out. I love it. Ongoing monetary transactions. How's that for a line of baloney? Yes, so they're going to keep it going. The United States, the cheap money. At some point, the cheap money spigot, and I'm not the only one talking about this, is going to have to be turned off. When interest rates go up, the economy goes down. It's as simple as that. Look, don't believe me, believe history. Go back to 2000. The dot-com bubble burst in March of 2000. And you could go to our TrendsJournal page, and you can see I had forecast in 1999 that the dot-com bubble would burst by the second quarter of 2000. So what happened? Well, 9/11 happened. The United States was in a severe recession. Bush's popularity was in the toilet, where it should have been. But 9/11 happened, all of a sudden the flags came out, the yellow ribbons, and Alan Greenspan lowered interest rates to 46-year lows and created the bubble. Plus all of these, exotic derivatives and all these financial instruments, the same thing is going on now. The exotic instruments are back. You have companies like Blackstone that all of a sudden got into the housing market. And they bought 40,000 homes within the last few years. Where are they getting the money? So, and now they're issuing bonds against it. You look at all of this collusion going on within the banking system. While people are losing their homes, they're getting the free, cheap, almost free, cheap money. So at some point, and I believe it's going to happen in the first quarter of 2014, interest rates are starting to go up. What do you have? A 30-year mortgage is gone from what? 3.5 to about 3.8 now, 4.8 now, 4.58. I mean, it keeps fluctuating within that. It's gone up over 100 basis points in several months. You can see the drag that has had on the housing market. Look at the other big driver that's keeping the economy up, auto sales. Hey, Gary, I got a deal for you. Don't put down any money. I'm going to give you a no interest rate loan. Don't worry about it. You pay me back. We'll start it in 30 months or something. They're doing the same thing, non-verification loans. So at some point when interest rates go up around the world, the economy collapses. And again, the proof is there. When the talk of tapering...
let me just jump in.
Let me finish this. When the talk of tapering came, you can see what happened in all the emerging markets. All that hot money that went into the emerging markets because of the cheap money flowing out of the US and Europe, it started going out. And those economies started to collapse. So it's a global collapse that'll happen when the interest rates go up. So
global collapse on the horizon. This is your prediction. Worse than 2008. Now, let's talk about domestic surveillance. We've seen a dramatic increase in the revelations because of what Edward Snowden revealed to Glenn Greenwald. Now it's official. It's been speculated and spoken of for many years. But why do we see these issues of domestic surveillance increasing now? Is the government concerned of an uprising of some sort in response to the economic collapse?
Why else would Homeland Security just spend another $80 million on defense against civilians? Of course they are. They know it's good. They may be stupid on one end, the two political parties, but on other levels, they're very shrewd. They know what's going on.
So does Homeland Security believe that the American citizens are a threat? Are they terrorists?
It's not a question of terrorists. Look what happened when the government shutdown happened and people couldn't get their food stamps. Look at the runs they had in Walmarts. Look how berserk the people went. You know my saying, when people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And more people are losing it. And when this crisis hits, you're going to see a lot of people lose it. And I believe that that's why the founding fathers would be turning in their grave if they saw what happened to this country. As I've been thinking about it, traditional religions have strayed so far away from their roots as the United States government has strayed from its Constitution. So yes, Why do you think they're robbing us of all our rights? Because they have the right to do anything they want to us to keep us down as the economy explodes and to keep order. Everyone knows about the militarization of the police forces and how the military is sending over all of their equipment that they don't use anymore, a lot of it, to the police forces, even in little towns. So yes, they're preparing for the worst.
Now, you mentioned a shift. There's been a religious shift. Government in the United States has shifted from the founders' intent. Is there another shift coming in the next few years in America? A shift back, perhaps?
You know, it could go either way. It depends on the individual. I've been saying this over and over again. You know, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. So I always ask the same question. You know, are you in truth with yourself? Are you physically, emotionally, and spiritually trained and fit? Because that's what really makes the difference. And in our society, you know, you look at what the society looks like, what they eat, what they think, what they watch, what they wear. You know, it's all together. It's all one piece. So to me, it has to be a renaissance. It has to be a rebirth, a restoration of America. As you know, I'm up here in colonial Kingston, New York. I put my money where my mouth is. Literally a stone's throw from this camera is the most historic corner in the United States. It's the only place on each corner where there's a stone building that predates the Revolution. It was the heart of the Revolution. Part of it was over here. I'm doing what I can to start the Second American Revolution. Again, one that's emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and moral. So that, to me, when the vacuum is as big as it is now, when so many people distrust these clowns that we call congressmen, senators, and commanders-in-chief, and I'm not picking on Obama, I'm putting him in the pot with the rest of them, with Bush and with Clinton and with the other defilers of our nation and robbing of our Constitution, sending our jobs overseas, etc., and starting illegal wars. It's up to the people to where the future's going. There's no leader out there that's going to lead me. I can lead myself. And when enough people start leading themselves, then we can lead our nation back to where it should be, a nation that was highly respected and regarded. Yes, I know of the atrocities it committed, you know, beginning with the Indians. I'm well aware of it, and the slavery and the other issues. But it was also the greatest nation on earth for a lot of other reasons. And freedom and democracy was the main one. And that could come back. If that comes back, we could prosper again.
Gerald, how can people get a hold of the Trends Journal?
TrendsJournal.com, TrendsJournal.com. And by the way, Gary, I do Trends in the News each night as a part of Trends Journal TV, so the people could see the real news that's going on, not that prostitute baloney coming from CNN, MSNBC, and the rest of the clowns. We
thank you for joining us here on WHDT to provide your perspective. We've got many more coming up. That was Gerald Celente. Much more news. We've got the report from Hollywood. We've also got the weather. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.